The promise was simple: no more burden on students, no more crushing debt, a new approach to education funding. Then reality arrived. The committee room was unusually tense that morning. Students in the public gallery, journalists everywhere, cameras positioned to capture every moment. This wasn't just another policy debate. This was about broken promises to an entire generation. Jeremy Clarkson sat at the witness table, arms folded. His expression was controlled, but his eyes showed anger not for himself, but for the millions of young people watching who'd been lied to. Across from him sat Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, surrounded by policy advisors and government briefings. She looked prepared, confident in her position. That confidence was about to shatter. The committee chair cleared his throat. Thank you for attending today's session examining university funding and tuition fee policy. We have Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson and Mr. Jeremy Clarkson. He adjusted his papers. Secretary Phillipson, perhaps you could outline the government's position on higher education funding. Phillipson straightened professionally. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The government is committed to maintaining world-class higher education while ensuring financial sustainability for universities. She looked around the room. In October 2024, we adjusted tuition fees from £9,250 to £9,535, the first increase since 2017. This modest rise reflects inflation and ensures universities can continue delivering quality education. She paused. We've also increased maintenance support for students from lower income families and expanded access programs. Clarkson remained perfectly still. Phillipson continued. These changes balance student interests with institutional viability. We're investing in the next generation while being fiscally responsible. She sat back, clearly satisfied. The chair turned to Clarkson. Mr. Clarkson, your response? Clarkson leaned forward slowly. When he spoke, his voice was quiet but carried weight that filled the room. Secretary Phillipson, let me take you back a few years. He pulled a document from his folder. October 2019, Labor Party Conference. A labor education spokesperson, not you specifically, but your party called tuition fees a disaster and pledged to abolish them. He looked up. Remember that? Phillipson's smile tightened. Opposition Policy Proposals 2023, Clarkson continued, speaking over her. Labor Manifesto Development. Multiple labor MPs, including several current ministers, publicly supported reducing or eliminating tuition fees. He pulled out another paper. Then the 2024 election. Your manifesto was carefully worded. No explicit promise to cut fees. But the implication was clear. Labor would ease the burden on students. He looked directly at her. So what happened? You got into government and immediately raised fees. Explain that. The room went silent. Phillipson cleared her throat. Mr. Clarkson, when we examine the university sector finances, you realize promises are expensive, Clarkson interrupted calmly. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. That's not fair, isn't it? Clarkson challenged. You spent years criticizing conservatives for tuition fees. Then you raised them yourselves. That's not governing. That's hypocrisy. Phillipson's expression hardened. The financial reality of higher education. Let's talk about financial reality, Clarkson interrupted. He stood up, the cameras followed. A student starting university this year will graduate with approximately £45,000 in debt. That's tuition fees plus living costs over 3 years. He paused. By the time they pay it off, if they ever do, the interest will have pushed total repayment to over £65,000. He looked around the room. £65,000 for a degree that might not even lead to a well-paying job. He turned back to Phillipson. And you just made it more expensive. A labor committee member tried to defend. Surely the fee increase is minimal, £285 per year, Clarkson said, which sounds small until you add it to the existing £9,250. And the interest and the maintenance loans, he shook his head. It's not minimal to students already drowning in debt. A young student in the gallery shouted, "We can't afford this." The chair banged his gavel. Order. The public gallery will remain silent or be cleared. But the anger was real. Clarkson continued calmly. Secretary Phillipson, you said this increase ensures universities can deliver quality education. Can you guarantee that quality? Phillipson blinked. Universities are autonomous institutions. That's not an answer, Clarkson said. Students are paying more. Are they getting more? Phillipson shifted in her seat. Investment in facilities, staff, research staff? Clarkson interrupted. You mean the staff being made redundant because universities are cutting costs? He pulled out another document. This is from the University and College Union. Over 15,000 academic staff faced redundancy consultations in 2024 to 2025. He looked up students paying more, staff being fired. Where's the money going? Phillipson's jaw tightened. University finances are complex. Stop saying complex, Clarkson said sharply. It's not complex. Universities are businesses now. They pay vice chancellors six-figure salaries while cutting teaching staff and charging students more. He gestured broadly. And you're enabling it by raising fees instead of demanding reform. The room was tense now. A conservative committee member spoke up. Secretary Phillipson, how do you respond to accusations of broken promises? Phillipson tried to regain control. We never explicitly promised to eliminate tuition fees, but you implied it, Clarkson interrupted, for years. Every time you criticize conservative education policy, students heard labor will fix this. He leaned on the table. Then you got into power and did exactly what the conservatives did. Raise fees, maintain debt, change nothing. Phillipson's face reddened. That's a gross oversimplification. Is it, Clarkson challenged. Then tell me one significant thing you've changed about student financing. Silence. Phillipson glanced at her notes. We've increased maintenance support. By how much? The exact figures? By how much? Clarkson pressed. Phillipson's advisor whispered urgently. Approximately 3.1% increase. 3%, Clarkson said flatly, while inflation ran at 4 to 5%. So in real terms, students got less. He shook his head. You didn't help them. You just changed the numbers to look like you did. An SNP member spoke up. Scotland abolished tuition fees years ago. Exactly, Clarkson agreed. Scotland made it work, so we know it's possible. He turned to Phillipson. Scotland. Wales has lower fees. Northern Ireland has lower fees, but England, the wealthiest part of the UK, charges the most and just increased them. He paused. Explain that logic. Phillipson tried to respond. Different funding models, different priorities, Clarkson corrected. Scotland prioritizes education. England prioritizes what exactly? He pulled out another document. This is government spending data. Last year, England spent £12 billion on foreign aid, £15 billion on various international commitments. He looked up. But asking universities to function without charging students £9,535? Impossible, apparently. The room erupted in murmurs. You have money, Clarkson continued. You choose to spend it elsewhere. Be honest about that. Phillipson stood suddenly. Mr. Clarkson, you're conflating separate budget lines. Money is money, Clarkson said firmly. You choose where it goes. You chose foreign aid over free education. Own that decision. A Lib Dem committee member tried to intervene. Surely international and domestic budgets. Surely British students should come first, Clarkson interrupted. He turned back to Phillipson. These are your constituents, your citizens, young people trying to build futures, and you're burdening them with decades of debt. His voice grew quieter, but more intense. Do you know what that does to someone? Starting adult life £50,000 in debt? Phillipson said nothing. They can't buy homes, Clarkson continued. Can't start businesses. Can't take risks. Everything they earned for years goes to paying off university. He gestured to the student gallery. You're crippling an entire generation financially, and you just made it worse. The students in the gallery were silent now, watching intently. Phillipson tried to respond. Higher education is an investment. In what? Clarkson challenged. Half of graduates end up in jobs that don't require degrees. They're paying £50,000 for qualifications they don't even use. He pulled out yet another paper. This is from the Office for National Statistics. 45% of graduates are in non-graduate jobs 5 years after university. He looked up. So they paid for degrees they didn't need, taking on debt they can't afford, to get jobs they could have gotten without university. He shook his head. And your solution is to charge them more? A young conservative MP stood clearly angry. My constituents include thousands of students. How do I explain this to them? Phillipson tried to answer, but the room was getting louder. Another MP shouted, Young people voted Labor believing you'd help them. They trusted you. The chair banged his gavel repeatedly. Order! This committee will maintain order, but frustration poured out from all sides. Clarkson remained seated, watching calmly as the chaos unfolded. When it finally quieted, he spoke again. Secretary Phillipson, let me ask you something personal. She tensed. Did you attend university? Phillipson nodded. Yes, did you pay tuition fees? A pause. I attended before the current fee structure. So you got free education, Clarkson stated, or minimal fees? Phillipson's expression tightened. The system was different then. Exactly, Clarkson said. Your generation got affordable or free university. Then you pulled the ladder up behind you. He gestured broadly. You benefited from a system that invested in students. Then you dismantled it and told the next generation, sorry, can't afford it. His voice hardened. That's not just policy failure, that's generational betrayal. The room went completely silent. Phillipson stood frozen, clearly struggling to respond. Clarkson continued quietly. These students will be paying off debt when they're 40, maybe 50. Some will never finish paying. He looked directly at Phillipson. You did that? Your government, your decision. He picked up his papers. And when they can't afford homes, can't start families, can't build the lives they want because they're drowning in university debt, remember this moment. He stood up. Remember when you had the chance to help them and chose not to. Complete silence. Phillipson remained standing but looked shaken. The chair cleared his throat. Perhaps we should one final question, Clarkson said. Everyone waited. He looked at Phillipson. If you could go back to opposition, knowing what you know now, would you still have criticized tuition fees? Silence. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Phillipson's mouth opened slightly, then closed. The situation is complex, she finally stammered. That's what I thought, Clarkson said quietly. He sat down. The session ended shortly after. Students filed out silently, faces grim, MPs left in uncomfortable clusters. Journalists rushed to file stories. Within an hour, the footage was everywhere. Social media exploded with student outrage. News channels played it continuously. But one moment dominated. Bridget Phillipson, unable to defend her own policy. Jeremy Clarkson, having exposed tuition fees as generational betrayal. And across Britain, millions of students watching, realizing they've been lied to. Labor promised change. They delivered more of the same. The fees increased, the debt grew, and the betrayal was complete.